there, the atmosphere will be more peaceful than existing now.
Thank you. I'm Pradeep Sehgal. My company does a lot of trade with Pakistan. And in that perspective, I have a question for the panel and the authorities who are present here, fortunately. But before I start, I have one request for everybody here that we have. It's very, it's very good that we have moved on the macro side, and we have seen a lot of progress on the policy side. But now I think is the time to move on the micro side. The micro side is lagging behind, and it's creating a lot of problems for the trade to grow. Having said that, I would just like to highlight 2-3 areas for that, and then is my question. First is that I come from Amritsar, by the way, and I'm at the helm of the trade by the land route, we say it. It happens in 2 ways. One is by road, and the second is by rail. First thing is that a lot of people, a lot of trade bodies which we have at the local level feel that it will be very pragmatic to have people who are actually doing the trade involved in the process, which unfortunately at present they are not. Second is, one area which I would like to highlight is the human resource, which is involved in trade. First is the human resource which does the trade, which is involved in the trade, engaged in the trade. Unfortunately, people are not that aware, they are not that savvy, and that creates a lot of problems for them, like coining everything, putting everything in the basket of NTBs, if you're not aware. The second is the people who are at the helm of affair at the micro level, for example, the authorities which man the port, which run the ports, both at the railway side and at the road side. That needs a lot of improvement. Because we see that when you say the NTBs, most of the questions you would have faced are from the people who are doing trade from the land route. Because the sea ports, fortunately, have a lot of mature and good quality human resource already being there. Unfortunately, we don't have it at the land side. Now my question is that to the panel is that we have seen a lot of, I'll come back to that, we have seen a lot of progress on the macro side. And what is the road map drawn for the progress at the micro side? For example, as I am not aware as a trader, when the Wagah port is going to be converted from a 12-hour working port to a 24-hour working port. That means we are missing on the 50% of the potential of that port. Railways, if you take up the data of last 12 months, or I think 18 months, you would see a sharp decline in the movement, in the volumes by railway. Now this is a serious concern. Why it is happening? Why it is being allowed? And why something is not being done on that part? That's a very important question. You may have all kinds of trade liberalization as far as the policy is concerned, but if you don't pay attention on these places, in the infrastructure side or on the micro side, I would say, I'm afraid we will have everything on the policy side, but we will not have much on the movement side. And the lastly is that I would request that is somebody putting a focus on after the Pakistan announcing, I would say that moving from positive list to the negative list, how many items are actually being added to the trade? And if not, why? Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe now is the time that I can turn to both Zafar Saab and Dr. Khullar. One more? Yeah, okay.
I'm Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Commerce. I had the occasion to visit. I'm Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Commerce. I had the occasion to visit the Wagah border, sir, and this question is for you. I found 400 trucks loaded with goods ready to get into Pakistan inside the custom land station, sir, and 700 trucks outside over a distance of nearly 5 kilometers. So 1,100 trucks filled with stuff of which the 700 outside were waiting for 5 days to enter the land customs station, was the situation on our side. I asked the Deputy Commissioner Customs why this is happening, sir. And he told me that the infrastructure on the Pakistan side can take only 250 trucks on a single day. So that means the infrastructure on the Pakistan side, if it is improved, we could have 1,100 trucks moving in every day through that custom land station, which has been built by Sir at extremely fast pace in 1 year, spending more than 100 crores, and has tremendous capacity on our side. So the question is, if that can be done, as Sir rightly said, one of the major infrastructure constraints could be taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, please.
Thank you, ma'am. I would touch upon all the questions that have been raised. First is the agriculture pricing and agriculture integration. As Rahul told us about the economy, integration of the economy of Punjab, or if there had been no border, then the economy would integrate. I mean, that is a question which is being debated in Pakistan. And one of the live debates which was going on in one of the television stations, they also asked my opinion. And they said that in Indian Punjab, the electricity is given free to the farmers, and how can our farmers compete with them? Or the diesel is, the price of diesel is subsidized. In Pakistan, the price of diesel and the petrol is the same. So how can our farmers compete with them when the Indian government is heavily subsidizing that? So I said, look at it the other way. If Pakistan had been doing it, and Pakistan's onions and tomatoes had been cheaper, and they were going to Amritsar, then you would come up with an argument that our taxpayers' money is being used to subsidize the consumer in Amritsar. So, I mean, there are always two sides to the same argument. And this is how it is, situation at this moment in time. Possibly lot can be done if the two countries can get their act together in terms of basmati rice, in terms of cotton, in terms of agricultural commodities. And vis-a-vis the next issue which has been raised is about the Wagah port and the railways capacity, and also how many items have been expended. Let me say this, that Wagah port has its own constraints. It has, the new infrastructure has raised the trade to a level, but the constraint is still there. It works 12 hours, it should work 24 hours. I agree with that. Then also the trucks should pass through Wagah, and customs may be held at Lailpur or on Faisalabad or in Gujranwala, where the goods are destined finally. Similarly, the goods coming from Pakistan, why do they have to have their customs at Atari? They can go to Delhi or to Amritsar, and the containers can be opened there. There is a lot to be done. I mean, I totally agree that we are not realizing the potential of the land trade. We are confining it to, at a limited scale and hurting ourselves. We can have more crossing points. We can have more infrastructure. We can liberalize the visa regime. We can create meeting points between the businessmen at the border where they don't need visas. This is one proposal which can be done. I know that Mr. Sunil Manjal would come up with all kinds of suggestions when the Pakistan-India Business Council meet. And then also the trade and services which can be liberalized. The last, I think, impression was about how many new items have been added to the trading list, and what is the volume of the trade. I think the trade is gradually expanding between India and Pakistan, and the constraints of infrastructure are there, and it is hampering our progress. Still, I mean, there is trade continuing through third country. In Pakistani markets, goods are coming through Afghanistan, Pakistan transit trade, going to Kabul, and then, or they are not going to Kabul and being diverted on the way to markets in Lahore and Karachi. And we are not, I mean, gaining the full potentials of the liberalized environment of trade, which is the ultimate aim. We are losing out. There are goods coming to Pakistan via Dubai. There are goods going to India via Dubai sometimes. So, lot needs to be done. We are here to, I mean, explore the potential and advise the government on that. Thank you.
Rahul?
Preferential trading arrangement, because that stands as a, see what my MFN is and what my bound tariffs are and what my applied tariffs are, that those are WTO obligations. My derogations therefrom under a PTR are safeguarded. So the real, that's what the second plank was all about. Now I think Arvind, please correct me, my memory is not all that great. In the last round, 105 tariff lines were on the textiles and 155 were on the agriculture, right? What they've done is that, see, on the preferential tariff agreement, you have a sensitive list. Now leave aside the sensitive list. That sensitive list can be a very large list, okay? Which means effectively I give you no tariff concession. So when the last round was held, what they've done is, we had promised to reduce by 30%. We've done that. And in that, there are 155 articles, tariff lines, which are essentially agricultural produce. The bottom line answer to your problem is this. You have actually got to move to a situation where you have a PTA in place, where the sensitive list is so small and the effective applicable tariff on the rest is much lower. Then exactly what Zafar says will happen. Tomatoes and onions will go this way, wheat may go that way, cotton may go this way, some cotton may go that way. And then, thank you very much, there are so many gainers on one side that even if there's one or two losers on the other side, they're drowned out. So that's the real answer to your question. I had meant to labor this point, but for those of you who've got the tables, please read table 5, 6 and 7. This gives you an indication of the latest numbers of trade in South Asia, India's trade in South Asia. Now, what I'm going to draw your attention to is that in every single case, right, 4 countries, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Nepal, account for 90 to 95% of India-South Asia trade. Number 1. That's what table 5 and 6 are telling me. Turn to table 7 and then you get another picture. Notice how, and I want to single out 2 particular ones. Look at Sri Lanka and look at Bangladesh. We liberalized our preferential trading arrangement with Bangladesh. Virtually gave away everything unilaterally. Look at what has happened to trade. Look at what has happened to the volume of trade. Look at what has happened to the balance of trade. Do the same exercise for Sri Lanka, notwithstanding all the tensions in Sri Lanka. And the numbers will tell you the story. Now look at the last column. And you'll see that, we share it with my colleague. That's the number that bothers me, the number on the top. Because trade with Bangladesh is 56.7%. Something else is going at 40%, and Pakistan is still at 10%. Now that is an absurd number. And that's the point I wanted to make. Second, to supplement what, I think Zafar has already answered the infrastructure question, I'm not going to labor it. I think the thing which you also need to understand, and particularly Mr. Sehgal, is this. See, part of the agreement on the land trade was that when you move to the negative list, that negative list would become applicable for trade across the border. That has not happened. Okay? So your trading list for items across the border is pretty much the same as it was 2-3 years ago. So don't look for new items, you're not going to find them till the new items are added. Bigger issue. If your infrastructure capability cannot handle even what is on the lines of trade, open on the lines of trade, if you were to expand it hugely, admittedly there will be growth in trade. But imagine what would happen if you did not have commensurate infrastructure. So, meaning this is a plea, I think, on my behalf, on my behalf to Zafar to take that message back, that just like we got the ICP done, and when we got it done 100 crores plus, but we never knew what we were planning for. I think we need to do that on the other side to get this going. Last point on the micro thing which you kept harping on. Rest assured, there are committees. There's a customs cooperation committee. There's every single possible device to speed up and facilitate trade has been set up. Unfortunately, neither is he Commerce Secretary nor am I Commerce Secretary, so I can't tell you what's going on the ground right now. But I don't think it's failing for want of an effort in setting up institutional structures.
You wanted to address a question? Yeah.
Yeah, there was one question asked about Taliban and Hakimullah Masood's death. Yes. Not many people appreciate how much Pakistan's economy has suffered because of the war on terror. And let me say this, that when 9/11 happened and American fleet was assembled in the Arabian Sea, even before the first shell was fired in Operation Enduring Freedom to Afghanistan, the cost of doing business or making exports to the world rose for the exporters of Pakistan, because there was substantially increased charges for insurance. And then there was a disconnect between the business world because visas were not being issued because of the situation in Pakistan and this continuing war in Afghanistan. And even the samples had to be airlifted. Nobody was coming to Pakistan to visit that. So Pakistan has paid a very heavy price for that terrorism. Hakimullah Masood's death is not really that important in the overall context of doing business in Pakistan or Pakistan's trade relationship, because he headed one of the many dozens of factions of Taliban which are operating. And they have not really threatened Pakistan's exports or Pakistan's business. Their agenda is, I think, not related with trade and commerce. So rest assured that Pakistan would continue to do business whether Hakimullah Masood lives or dies. Thank you.
Well, before I ask Dr. Kathuria to give the vote of thanks, I'm going to invite Mr. Sunil Munjal to say a few words, because there are high expectations from what you and your counterparts are doing across the border. So please.
Thank you. I just thought I'll mention, since it came up in all the three speakers, that the India-Pakistan Joint Business Forum has taken on a fairly aggressive program for itself. In the very first meeting, we set up 10 task forces to address the very issues which have been raised by some of the members here and also raised by both Khullar Sahab and Zafar Sahab. And 4 of these task forces have already made their first report, and these will go into the concerned departments, and they're addressing exactly these things. What is it that will make this work? And the 10 areas we picked were those where either there were big concerns or big potential. We picked both of those areas to address first. In fact, in the meeting we had in Delhi recently, we also added power and energy, which was not taken up in the first lot because we believed that the government was doing a fair bit. I do want to make one more comment though. I was party to some of the discussions which were mentioned earlier. I was a passenger in some of these. I saw it firsthand. And I've been involved in India-Pakistan track 2 now for almost 10 years. And someone asked me this question last year or year before last when this was going on. What do you think is happening? I said, for the first time, one gets a feeling that something might actually happen. So the forward movement was so positive and so rapid that there was this, the goodwill it generated on both sides went way beyond the players who were directly involved. And I think we have lost some of that momentum because it slowed down. But every time we have a meeting, both with our counterparts in industry or with government on the other side, it is encouraging to see that clearly amongst the leadership on both sides, there is a desire to make this work. It's not a secret. I can mention the last time when we were in Islamabad, we went to meet with the Prime Minister, and the meeting we thought was 15 minutes. After an hour and 20 minutes, I said, "Ye maza bada hai meeting da, but I have to get back for dinner to Delhi, so we have to leave." And he was very open and very businesslike. In that meeting, we mentioned to him that we met and we made task forces. He said, "Kedi banaiye ne?" So I had handwritten notes. I was a bit hesitant. I said, "We'll send them to you." He said, "No, show me right now." So I handed him a handwritten note in which we had mentioned what we would like to do. So he had a team of business leaders from Pakistan also in the same room. And one of the things which comes up again and again is the most favored nation status for India. So we made 2 suggestions. One, we should stop using this word. Because when you translate this into Urdu, it is impossible for any political leader to do it in Pakistan. It's not possible. So we have proposed a term, incidentally, and not many people realize, US and China don't use this term either. So what we propose is that it should be called non-discriminatory market access. It's vague and it gets to the same objective. Because you're not doing any favor to each other. You're only removing any bias against each other. That's all it does. Is that right, Khullar Sahab? So we've actually proposed to change the terminology. And he asked his own business leaders, what do you think? Without exception, all of them said it is in our favor. Because they have a complaint about some concerns with doing business in India, especially in textiles. And they continue to compare us, the conditions they have with Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. Now they are under a special agreement or arrangement. The moment Pakistan switches to this, you automatically come under the SAARC agreement, which already brings them down to the lowest levels of tariff. So there is then, that issue is removed, which actually, they believe, prohibits their biggest strength to be exploited by sending low count and medium count cotton textiles to India. We've spoken now with our colleagues in industry here, and they're saying we're actually open. And I have to say they were earlier very hesitant to open this. The other issue we found in Pakistan, this is a big change in the last 7 or 8 years. In the initial years, we found their reaction to talking to India was exactly the same as ours was 20 years ago when India wanted to open up. The belief in India was that all these large multinationals will come in, they will kill our markets, they'll finish off the Indian markets, they will become the Indian players. The reality is many of the players who were then objecting from India are becoming multinationals themselves. So this is one comment we have been making to Pakistan for a few years, that actually they work under even more adverse circumstances than we do, and they're successful. So they're actually pretty strong companies. They do not have the environment yet or the scale to be able to take advantage of this. So if a market between India and Pakistan opens up, for us it's the size of 2 states. For them it's 20 times bigger than the market. So the reality is both of us do stand to gain, and as that realization starts to dawn on both sides, and it is right, Khullar Sahab, for you to say that our focus in this dialogue needs to be only on trade and investment. But I think it's also important to allow this, the benefit of this to leak out, that you can actually have a dialogue about Kashmir. You can actually have a dialogue about the more difficult issues if you have vested interest for peace because created by this bridge that is being created. So the benefit, the multiplier benefit of this is absolutely enormous. It's a shame that today the largest trade across the globe is actually intra-regional, within the region itself. And this region has the lowest trade in the world. And mostly because of the relationship between India and Pakistan, or the lack of it. And whether we do SAFTA or if we can't repair this bridge, we switch to BIMSTEC, India has decided to go ahead. So it is actually even more important for Pakistan than it is for India that we do this. While I hasten to add that it is important for us to have a dynamic economy in our neighborhood that can only benefit all of us. So I think we'll all give it a good shot.
Thank you. I think Zafar Saab wants to say a few words.
I just wanted to tell you a story about a friend of mine who is into the business of filmmaking. He made one film, Khuda Ke Liye. This was also screened in India. And the second film that he made was Bol, that was also screened in India. His name is Shoaib Mansoor, and my friendship dates back many, many years. He wrote a script about Siachen conflict. And I read the script of that movie. This was about 5 years ago. And I mean, it brought out the absurdity of this war theatre in its true sense. It was very appropriately titled, Ye Barf Meri Hai. And he said that I'm going to make this film. So when the dialogue process started, I told him that you will take at least 2 years to make this film. And by that time, I think Siachen would be resolved. He said, okay. After 2 years, he again asked me that it has not been resolved. Can I make the movie? Again, I told him that it would be resolved, so better put the plan on the back burner. And I think I'm losing a friend because he thinks that my predictions are wrong. I always tell him that this is something which is doable, which is the most absurd thing, that we are having the highest war theatre where more people die because of the weather than anything else. But somehow we people have not been able to resolve such absurd things. So I totally agree with you that to generate the right kind of atmosphere for the economic integration, something needs to be done at a wider scale. Thank you.
Just one quick comment. I know Chair wants to close this. Lest I gave the impression that trade is the only leg on which dialogue is to proceed. No, not at all. My point was that I was looking at it from the narrow lens of trade, whether it was the challenge of proximity, whether it was this, whether it was that. It is my firm belief that dialogue has to proceed on all fronts. There is no doubt about it. But I think we need to constantly remind ourselves, at least on the trade front, why is it we are doing it? What there is in it for us? And that was the limited purpose to which I had addressed myself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we close the Q&A session, and I'll ask Dr. Kathuria to propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Ahluwalia. It's my absolute privilege to propose this vote of thanks. I think it's been a fascinating session. Project of this magnitude that we have undertaken in ICRIER on strengthening, as I had said earlier, research and fostering multi-level dialogue for normalizing trade relations between